Tea tree oil. There are almost 300 varieties of Melaleuca alternifolia, commonly known as tea tree in Australia. But the foliage of a single type only is distilled to retract the wonder oil. The origin of the term tea tree dates back to the late 1700s. Captain James Cook came upon groves of trees thick with sticky aromatic leaves, and when boiled by the indigenous Aboriginal tribes, rendered a spicy tea, hence the name tea tree. 1939, the outbreak of World War II. The Australian government commandeered all stocks of tea tree oil for the military and supplied all their Pacific troops with tea tree oil in their first aid kits. During the war, synthetic penicillin gave rise to the staunch belief in the wonder of modern drugs. Tea tree oil became hard to come by and was considered to be out of fashion. Its prolix reintroduction to the world, however, is an extraordinary tale of a man's quest, his son's belief, and the woman that stood by him on their life's journey of determination and perseverance in the face of adversity.
My stepfather, Eric White, was a real adventurer. All his life he was questing.
And Eric and Mum decided to emigrate in early 1961.
He said, one day I'm going to find something special in this country and give that back to the world as a gift for the kindness of having us come to Australia.
And I remember very clearly one day in summer, that summer of 1962, Eric was out in the garden and got bitten by a funnel web spider.
He knew immediately that this was a bad bite. They hurt like hell.
Walked next door to his next door neighbour in Pymble, and his name is Brian.
And Brian said, quick, take you to the hospital, we've got antivenines, if we get there in time, you'll be fine.
Got to know Brian a bit better over the months that followed and found that Brian was
a research chemist based at the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences in Sydney.
And he and Eric got to know each other pretty well, and he sort of said to Eric, he said, I wish somebody would have the courage to develop a plantation with these trees.
Eric took a decision to just actively pursue this idea.
It took about 3 or 4 years before he finally got his objectives, his goals achieved, and that was to identify a block of land.
And he did that by getting government ordnance survey maps, the kind the army use when they're doing bivouacs across the country. And when he reached the end of the line, as far as a four-wheel drive could take him, he would then get out and start walking into the swamp, often wading in water almost up to his waist, to find these beloved tea trees. And he would describe the trees in his note. And when he found a stand of really beautiful trees, he would then take a sample, put this into a brown paper bag to keep it breathing, seal it up, put a special code on it, and at night he'd take out his little homemade distillation apparatus, steam it up, take out the few precious drops of oil, and he would record the quantity of oil that you would get. And when he found high quantity, he then sent those samples down to Sydney, and Brian would then map what is the quality. When you started to look at the map over many, many hundreds of samples, you realised it was like a bullseye, that in the centre was a very special zone of high quality, high yielding trees.
On this very swampy site stood the largest and most majestic of all the medicinal tea trees.
And it happens to be the place where the heart of tea tree has emerged.
And there he then applied to the Crown Lands Department for a 99-year lease.
They nearly fell off their chairs. They said, you're mad? Tea tree's a weed. That's the thing we're trying to get rid of.
And he waited 4 years, and when he got it, it was a Thursday. He said, that's what we're going to call the company, Thursday Plantation. And that was the beginning of it.
When Eric finally got some oil produced, around about that time, Christopher had decided to chuck in his daytime job.
I wanted to go and find out what to do. And I went off to, as we did in those days, to Nepal.
And during the course of his travels, he picked up some very nasty infections in his toenails.
Doctor looked at me and said, yes, we've identified it. We know what it is, and I can tell you it's incurable.
At the same time, in 1978, Michael, my other brother, had arrived in London with his audio business, And he had taken with him a bottle of tea tree from Eric's plantation, one of the very first batches that Eric had produced.
Eric had somehow got a message to him.
So somewhat skeptically, Chris put the oil on the toes.
And within 10 minutes, I had this soothing, calming feeling. I had this sense of relief from always wanting to scratch it, always a burning, itching feeling.
He kept on applying the oil for the next 3 to 4 days, and by the time he's ready to see the specialist in, 4 days' time, his nails had complete remission. There was a complete clear-up.
I had now had the world's expert tell me I had an incurable condition, and I had just seen an effect with this oil, which, having tried 100 other things, I knew was significantly making a difference.
And then we began talking about this idea of why don't we go up to the farm and stay with Eric.
When I rang and finally got put through to my mother, I caught her coincidentally at the moment she walked back into the house from having been at the hospital in intensive care. Eric had just been rushed down in the last couple of days from having a stroke and a heart attack, and he was having major bypass surgery. My mother said to me on the phone, "Darling, I have to tell you there's no chance this project could go on. He has lost all his money, his tea tree crop has failed twice in a row, and he had decided, life had decided for him. He was now broke and very sick." And she said, "It's over, there will be no tea tree plantation." And not so slowly this time, the wheels started to turn, and I realised it doesn't have to be over. Someone's got to do this job. Someone needs to be in that. And I said, "Look, I'm getting on a plane and we're coming back." So we cashed up our last traveller's checks. We just had enough money with $100 left over to buy a ticket back to Australia. We arrived in Australia absolutely penniless.
So I began to have experiences with using tea tree oil and just being completely amazed at what a difference it made to my life to know that I didn't have to worry about tropical ulcers and things. And it meant so much to me to be able to keep my child safe. And I just could see all around me people who needed it so badly. And I had a very strong sense that if we packed up and went home, nobody else was going to do this thing.
And I went to the local chemist. I bought 100 little bottles.
I went to the newsagent and bought a packet of stickers and packet of coloured pencils and sat down.
By night in a kerosene lantern, we drew our little labels on and we drew the messages. I was able to put the tea tree oil on the table and talk to people eye to eye and say, "You've got to try this."
And we sold 7 bottles.
Sold 7. And they more or less took it out of pity for me, I'm sure. They said, "Oh, well, we'll give it a try. $2, who cares?" But the beauty is the next time I went back to that market.
And the same people came back and bought those bottles, and one for their friend.
I want one for my mum. I want one for my husband.
And we sold 30 bottles. And that's when we knew.
It was all about, this is amazing, and that was the start of a total realisation that we had something and we could really take this to the world if we could get it in enough hands.
One of the problems with it is that it has so many applications. And sometimes it's hard for people to comprehend that you can have this one bottle and do so many different things with it.
First at the Shannon market, as I sat at the table of this little hippie market, the first little flea market with our hand-drawn bottles, and we sold with hard work the first 7 bottles. And when I went back the next month and I sold 30 bottles, with half the effort, my eyes opened. I said, the whole world has pimples and cold sores and tinea and itches and rashes and things, and they're never going away. They're part of human nature. And I have a treatment that is the world's best for these sorts of things. And that's when, for me, the possibility was unlimited. There is a chance to put a bottle in everybody's home around the world and make a real contribution to this planet.